8-year-old Lily Carter sat stiffly on the wooden courtroom bench, her small fingers curled tightly around the soft golden fur of her retriever, Max. The massive room, filled with people in stiff suits and serious faces, felt cold and unwelcoming. The air smelled like old books and polished wood, but beneath the surface, it crackled with tension. Her parents sat on opposite sides, their lawyers whispering in hushed but hurried tones. Lily's mother, Emily Carter, sat close to her lawyer, concern etched into every line on her face. Her father, Daniel Carter, on the other hand, wore a cool, confident expression, his polished shoes tapping against the floor impatiently. He had always been good at putting on a show for other people, smiling, pretending, making everyone believe he was the perfect father. But Lily knew better. The judge, a stern-looking woman with silver-rimmed glasses, raised her gavel and struck it against the desk. The sharp crack silenced the murmurs. "We are here to determine custody arrangements for Lily Carter," she announced, her voice steady and authoritative. "I will hear arguments from both parties." Lily swallowed hard. She hated this. The fighting, the yelling, the way adults talked about her, as if she wasn't even in the room. Like she was some object to be passed back and forth. No one had asked what she wanted. No one had asked how she felt. But Max knew. The golden retriever, his soft brown eyes filled with quiet understanding, sat beside her, his body pressed against her legs. Trained to sense her emotions, Max was always there when she needed him. When the nights were too long, when the shouting became too loud, when the world felt too big and scary. Her father's lawyer stood, buttoning his dark suit before speaking. "Your Honor, my client, Mr. Carter, is a responsible and loving father. He has a stable home, financial security, and the ability to provide the best life for Lily." Lily's heart pounded. Lies. "Ms. Carter," the judge turned to her mother's lawyer. "You may respond." Emily's lawyer, a kind-eyed woman named Ms. Dawson, stood. "Your Honor, financial stability does not equate to emotional stability. My client has been Lily's primary caregiver. We have multiple reports, including statements from Lily's teachers and neighbors, indicating that she is happiest and most comfortable in her mother's care." Her father scoffed, shaking his head. "Lily loves being with me," he said, his voice smooth, controlled. "Don't you, sweetheart?" The courtroom's eyes turned to her. Lily froze. She didn't want him to answer. If she said no, he'd be angry. If she said yes, it would be a lie. She felt Max shift beside her. Without thinking, she gave a tiny signal, raising 2 fingers against his fur. A silent request. Max understood immediately. He stood and walked forward and stopped in front of her father. Then he did something unexpected. He hesitated, sniffed, and then, ever so slightly, he backed away. The courtroom fell deathly silent. Lily's breath hitched as Max took a small but deliberate step backward. His golden fur bristled slightly, his ears twitching in unease. The once buzzing courtroom now felt eerily silent, the weight of his reaction pressing down on everyone in the room. Her father shifted in his seat, an uncomfortable chuckle escaping his lips. "What's this about, Lily?" he asked, his voice strained but still trying to sound composed. "Max knows me. We've always gotten along, haven't we, boy?" But Max didn't move forward. Instead, he let out a soft whimper, his tail no longer wagging. Lily's fingers tightened around the leash. She knew what was happening. Max had always been able to sense her emotions, reacting before she could even put her feelings into words. When she was happy, he bounced alongside her, his tail swaying like a fluffy flag. When she was sad, he would nuzzle her, resting his head in her lap. And when she was scared, truly scared, Max always knew. Her father's lawyer cleared his throat, clearly trying to dismiss the moment. "Your Honor, with all due respect, we can't take a dog's reaction as evidence in a custody hearing. This is a courtroom, not a pet showcase." Ms. Dawson, Lily's mother's lawyer, took a step forward. "Actually, Your Honor, Max is a trained emotional support animal. His instincts are highly attuned to Lily's well-being. His behavior today could be more telling than any witness testimony." The judge studied Max carefully. Her sharp, discerning eyes flickered to Lily, then back to the dog. Interesting. She adjusted her glasses. Miss Carter, does your dog often react like this? Lily hesitated. She wasn't used to people asking her things directly. Usually, the grown-up spoke over her, deciding her fate without considering her voice. She glanced at her father, who was staring at her now, his jaw tight. The look in his eyes, the one only she knew, sent a shiver down her spine. Max sensed her hesitation and nudged her gently. He was giving her courage in the only way he could. Taking a shaky breath, Lily finally spoke. Max, he always knows when I'm scared. Her voice was small, but the silence in the room made it echo. When my dad gets angry, Max hides with me. He doesn't like it when people yell. Her father let out a forced laugh, shaking his head. Come on, sweetheart. That's not fair. You know I love you. His voice was smooth, practiced. Lily swallowed, but before she could say anything, Max took another step, this time away from her father entirely. His body pressed against Lily's legs, a living shield between her and the man sitting across the courtroom. Ms. Dawson seized the moment. Your Honor, I'd like to request a brief recess to present additional evidence. The judge, who had been watching everything intently, nodded. Granted. Court is in recess for 15 minutes. She banged the gavel. As people began murmuring and shifting, Lily's father leaned forward, his expression dark. Lily, he said in a low voice. We'll talk later. Max let out a low, almost imperceptible growl. And for the first time, Lily felt like someone was truly protecting her. As soon as the judge declared the recess, the courtroom erupted into whispers. Lawyers murmured to their clients, reporters scribbled notes, and Lily felt dozens of curious eyes flickering in her direction. But none of it mattered. Her heart was hammering too loudly in her chest. Her father had leaned in before the break, his voice low and tight. We'll talk later. Those words had always meant one thing: trouble. She clutched Max's fur as her father stood up and smoothed his expensive suit, his expression unreadable. He turned to his lawyer and spoke in hushed tones, though she caught a few words. Asterisk ridiculous. A dog. Emotional tricks. Asterisk. Lily swallowed hard. She wanted to disappear. Her mother's lawyer, Ms. Dawson, crouched down beside her. Lily, sweetheart, you did great, she said gently. I know that wasn't easy. Lily nodded but didn't answer. Her fingers trembled as she stroked Max's head, grounding herself in his presence. Max had done something she hadn't expected. He hadn't just sensed her fear. He had shown it to the entire courtroom. The golden retriever had spoken in the only way he knew how, and everyone had listened. Ms. Dawson sighed and glanced toward the judge's bench, where the judge was flipping through documents, deep in thought. Lily, can I ask you something? Lily hesitated, then gave a small nod. Ms. Dawson lowered her voice. Has your dad ever scared you before? Lily felt her breath hitch. She glanced at her father, who was now speaking to his lawyer, his voice smooth and controlled. The perfect image of a composed, loving parent. That's what everyone always saw. But Max had seen the truth. Lily opened her mouth, but no words came out. She wasn't sure what she was allowed to say. Would her father get mad? Would she get in trouble? As if sensing her hesitation, Max nudged her hand, a gentle reminder that she wasn't alone. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, Lily answered, He gets mad a lot. Ms. Dawson's expression didn't change, but her eyes softened. Does he yell? Lily nodded. Does he hurt you? Lily's fingers twisted in Max's fur. No, she whispered. Not me. Ms. Dawson inhaled sharply. Your mom. Lily didn't answer, but she didn't have to. The look in her eyes said everything. Ms. Dawson stood, her expression now unreadable, and strode over to Lily's mother. They spoke in low voices, and Lily saw her mom's face tighten, her hands balling into fists on her lap. The courtroom door opened, and the bailiff stepped forward. Court is back in session. Lily's stomach twisted as everyone returned to their seats. The judge adjusted her glasses and looked over at Lily. Miss Carter, she said, her voice calm but firm. Would you feel safe living with your father? Lily felt all the air rush from her lungs. Her father shifted in his seat, staring at her with that look, the one that promised consequences. Max nudged her hand again, a reminder. Lily took a deep, shaky breath and did something she had never done before. She told the truth. Lily's fingers tightened around Max's fur as the judge's question echoed in her ears. Would you feel safe living with your father? The entire courtroom seemed to be holding its breath. Her father's eyes locked onto hers, dark and expectant. She knew that look. It was the one he gave her when she was supposed to say the right thing, the thing that kept him calm. But Max was still there, his warm body pressed against her, his presence a quiet reminder that she wasn't alone. Lily swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. No. A ripple of shock moved through the room. Her father stiffened. Lily, sweetheart. The judge raised a hand, silencing him. Let her speak. Lily's heart pounded against her ribs, her hands trembling as she clutched Max's leash like a lifeline. She felt exposed, like she had just cracked open a secret that wasn't supposed to be shared. But for the first time, people were listening. Ms. Dawson, her mother's lawyer, leaned forward. Lily, can you tell us why? She hesitated. The words felt too big, too heavy. How could she explain the fear? The way she tiptoed around her father's moods, the way the air in the house changed when he was angry. The way Max always seemed to know before she did when a storm was coming. Instead, she looked at Max. He had always spoken for her in his own way. Maybe he could do it again. Lily took a shaky breath and whispered, Max knows. Ms. Dawson nodded encouragingly. What does Max know? Lily glanced at her father. His jaw was tight, his fingers drumming against the table. The warning in his eyes sent ice down her spine. But then Max nudged her hand, grounding her. She looked back at the lawyer and, for the first time, let the truth spill out. He knows when I'm scared. He hides with me when Dad's mad. He always stays close when voices get loud. She took a deep breath. He doesn't like being near my dad. A murmur spread through the courtroom. Her father forced a chuckle, shaking his head. She's a kid. She's nervous because this is a courtroom, not because of me. He turned to the judge. Your Honor, it's ridiculous to base custody on a dog's behavior. This is emotional manipulation. The judge studied him for a long moment, then turned to Lily. Miss Carter, has Max ever reacted like this to anyone else? Lily shook her head. Only him. Silence. Her father's lawyer quickly stood. Your Honor, we can't seriously consider this. I assure you, I am taking everything into account. The judge interrupted. She turned to Ms. Dawson. You mentioned additional evidence. Ms. Dawson nodded and handed a folder to the bailiff. Your Honor, we have statements from Lily's teachers, neighbors, and a school counselor. They all describe similar concerns about Lily's behavior when discussing her father. Lily's father scoffed. This is absurd. The judge ignored him, flipping through the file. Her eyes sharpened as she absorbed the contents. Then she lifted her gaze. I'm calling for a full review of this case. Until then, temporary custody will remain with the mother. Lily let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her father, on the other hand, was seething. And Lily knew this fight was far from over. The gavel's echo still rang in Lily's ears as people shuffled out of the courtroom. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. Beside her, Max sat still, his warm body pressed against her leg. He hadn't stopped watching her father since the verdict was announced, his ears perked and alert. Her mother knelt down and took Lily's hands in hers. Sweetheart, you were so brave, she whispered, her voice shaking with emotion. I'm so proud of you. Lily gave a small nod, but she couldn't bring herself to smile. Her father was still here, and she knew this wasn't over. As her mother and Ms. Dawson gathered their things, Lily felt the weight of a familiar stare pressing down on her. She turned her head just in time to see her father storming toward them. Emily, he snapped, his voice low but sharp. You think you've won? You think this little stunt is going to keep me from my daughter? Max growled, a deep, rumbling sound that made her father freeze in his tracks. A security guard stepped closer, eyeing Mr. Carter with a warning look. Sir, I suggest you leave peacefully. Her father's fists clenched, but he forced a tight-lipped smile. I'm not done fighting, he said, his gaze shifting back to Lily. And neither are you, sweetheart. Lily's stomach twisted. She hated the way he said it, the way he always made things sound like they were her fault. But this time, she wasn't alone. Lily doesn't have to fight anymore, her mother said firmly, stepping in front of her. Not with you. Her father's smile faded. Without another word, he turned and stalked out of the courtroom, his lawyer scrambling after him. Lily let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Ms. Dawson turned to them. I'll make sure the supervised visitation rules are enforced. He won't get near Lily without approval from the court. Her mother nodded, gripping Lily's hand tightly. Thank you. As they left the courthouse, the afternoon air felt lighter, like the weight of years of silence had finally started to lift. The city hummed around them, but for once, Lily wasn't focused on the noise. She was focused on freedom Max trotted beside her, his tail wagging slightly as if sensing the change. As they reached the car, her mother knelt beside her again. Lily, I know this is a lot, but you did the right thing today. Lily hesitated. Do you think he'll ever stop being mad? Her mother's expression softened. I don't know, but what I do know is that you don't have to be afraid of his anger anymore. Livy looked down at Max, who stared back at her with those warm, knowing eyes. He had always known what she was too scared to say. And today, because of him, she had finally found the courage to speak. For the first time in a long time, Lily felt something she had almost forgotten. Safe. The days after the courtroom battle felt strange. Lighter in some ways, heavier in others. Lily no longer had to pack a bag every weekend, no longer had to sit stiffly in her father's car, dreading what mood he'd be in. No longer had to listen for the sound of slamming doors and raised voices. But the fear wasn't entirely gone. It lingered, creeping in when she least expected it, when the phone rang, when a car that looked like her father's slowed down near her school, when she caught her mother staring at the front door, lost in thought. Her father might not be in their house anymore, but his shadow still was. Max seemed to sense it too. He never let her out of his sight, always curling up beside her, always positioning himself between her and the door. As if he knew, just as she did, that the fight wasn't over yet. One afternoon, about a week after the trial, Lily sat on the couch, absent-mindedly running her fingers through Max's fur. Her mother was in the kitchen, talking quietly on the phone. Lily didn't need to hear the words to know who she was speaking to. Her father. Lily's stomach clenched. She focused on Max, on the way his ears twitched as if listening to her heart. He pressed his head against her knee, a silent reminder. You're not alone, A few minutes later, her mother walked in, her expression carefully neutral. She sat down beside Lily, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. That was your dad, she said gently. Lily swallowed hard. What did he want? Her mother hesitated. He wants to see you. Lily's breath caught. Max's head lifted, his body tensing slightly against her. It would have to be supervised, her mother continued. A social worker would be there. He wouldn't be able to be alone with you. She searched Lily's face. But, sweetheart, you don't have to go if you don't want to. Lily bit her lip. The idea of seeing her father again made her stomach twist into knots. Would he be angry? Would he try to make her feel guilty? Would he still look at her with that expression? She glanced down at Max, who was watching her carefully. What if I say no? She asked quietly. Her mother exhaled, reaching for her hand. Then you don't go. This time, Lily, you get to decide. Lily sat with that for a moment. She got to decide. Not him, not the court, not even the lawyers. For the first time in her life, she had a choice. She took a deep breath, stroking Max's head. I don't want to see him. Not yet. Her mother squeezed her hand. Okay. Lily felt the weight of fear loosen, just a little. She didn't know what the future held, but for now, she knew one thing for sure. She was finally being heard. And with Max by her side, she knew she always would be. Days turned into weeks, and though Lily still felt the occasional prickle of fear, something inside her was different. Stronger. She no longer flinched at unexpected noises. She no longer waited for the sound of her father's car in the driveway. For the first time in as long as she could remember, she felt safe. Max had become more than just her protector. He was her anchor, her silent guardian, the one who had spoken for her when she couldn't find the words. And now, Lily was starting to realize she had a voice of her own. One afternoon, as she sat on the porch, scratching behind Max's ears, her mother came outside holding an envelope. She hesitated before handing it over. "It's from your dad." Lily's stomach tightened. She stared at the letter, her name written in neat, familiar handwriting. "I can read it for you," her mother offered. Lily shook her head. "I want to do it." She took a deep breath and carefully opened the envelope. "Sweetheart, I know you're mad at me. I know you think I'm a terrible father. But I love you, Lily. I always have. I just don't understand why you said the things you did in court. Why you turned against me. You're my daughter. No matter what happens, that will never change. I hope in time you'll come back home where you belong. Love, Dad." Lily's hands trembled as she folded the letter. She had expected anger, maybe even threats. But this was worse. Her father wasn't apologizing. He wasn't admitting to anything. He still wanted her to believe that she was wrong, that it had all been in her head. She felt Max press his nose against her knee, grounding her. Asterisk, asterisk, you know the truth? Asterisk, asterisk, his presence seemed to say. And for the first time, Lily didn't doubt herself. She looked up at her mom. "I don't want to write back." Her mother nodded as if she had expected that. "You don't have to." Lily took a deep breath. "Do you think he'll ever change?" Her mother hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I don't know. But what I do know is that it's not your job to fix him." Lily let those words settle in her chest. For so long, she had felt like it was her fault, that maybe if she had been quieter, better, things would have been different. But she understood now. It wasn't her fault. It never had been. She reached down and wrapped her arms around Max, burying her face in his fur. "I think I want to talk to someone," she murmured. "Like a counselor. Just to make sure I don't feel like this forever." Her mother's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. "I think that's a wonderful idea." Lily didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if her father would ever truly let go, or if she would ever fully stop looking over her shoulder. But as she sat there, Max's warm body curled against hers, she realized something important. She wasn't afraid of her own voice anymore. And no one, not even her father, could take that away from her. Lily felt a strange mix of relief and fear settle in her chest as the judge announced that temporary custody would remain with her mother. Relief because for once, someone was listening. Fear because she knew her father wouldn't let this go without a fight. She kept her eyes down, avoiding his gaze, but she could feel his anger from across the courtroom. The way his jaw clenched, the way his fingers curled into fists on the table. Max must have sensed it too, because he inched closer, pressing against her legs like a protective barrier. Ms. Dawson cleared her throat, bringing the judge's attention back to her. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit additional evidence regarding Mr. Carter's temper and its effect on Lily." Her father's lawyer immediately objected. "This is a baseless attack. My client has never been charged with any form of abuse." Ms. Dawson didn't back down. "That may be true, but there are multiple reports of concern." She pulled out a document. Lily's teacher noticed changes in her behavior, sudden withdrawal, nervousness, and an increased fear of loud noises. The judge nodded, flipping through the papers. "Go on." Ms. Dawson continued. "Neighbors have also reported hearing raised voices from Mr. Carter's home, particularly at night. And perhaps most tellingly, Lily herself just confirmed that Max, her trained emotional support dog, consistently reacts with fear around her father." Her father let out a dry laugh, shaking his head. "You're really putting me on trial because of a dog's reaction. This is ridiculous." The judge gave him a sharp look. "Mr. Carter, you'll get your chance to speak. For now, I suggest you let your lawyer handle your case." That shut him up, at least for the moment. Ms. Dawson wasn't finished. She gestured toward Lily. We've also requested an evaluation with a child psychologist, someone trained to interpret a child's fear in cases like this. Lily's breath hitched. She hadn't expected that. Her father straightened, his expression carefully controlled. "That's unnecessary," he said smoothly. "I'm her father. She's just overwhelmed by all of this." The judge studied him for a long moment before turning to Lily. Her voice was softer now. "Miss Carter, I know this is difficult, but I need to understand. Are you afraid of your father?" The question hung in the air, heavier than anything Lily had ever been asked. She felt everyone watching her. Waiting. Max nudged her hand, as if telling her it was okay. Lily took a shaky breath. She could lie. She could say what her father wanted her to say. But for the first time, she realized she didn't have to be afraid anymore. So she lifted her head, met the judge's eyes, and said the one thing she had never dared to say before. "Yes." A gasp rippled through the room. Her father shot up from his seat. "Lily, don't." Max let out a sharp bark, cutting him off. The bailiff stepped forward, placing a firm hand on Mr. Carter's shoulder. "Sir, you need to remain seated." The judge held up a hand, her expression unreadable. "I've heard enough for today." She turned to Lily's mother. "Until further notice, full custody will remain with Miss Carter. Any visitation with Mr. Carter will require court supervision." Lily's father paled. "This is insane." The judge's gavel slammed down. "Court is adjourned." Lily barely heard the shuffle of people leaving. All she knew was that for the first time in a long time, she felt safe. And it was all because of Max.